All right, let's get right into it. So here's a hard truth that a lot of designers learn way too late. If your Figma file turns into a complete mess after just a couple of weeks, you're not actually building a scalable product. Nope, you're just making pretty pictures. Today, we're going to move past the basics and get into the advanced workflows that really separate the junior designers from the senior ones. I'm going to show you how to build a design system that can actually truly scale.
Okay, just look at these two Figma files. On the left, you've got absolute chaos. Rectangle 124, blue button version 3, final button. We've all been there. But on the right, well, that's a system. Button slash primary, card slash featured. Now, be honest with yourself. Which one of these looks a little too much like your current project? That difference right there, that's the exact problem we're here to solve.
And look, this isn't just about being neat and tidy. This kind of chaos has real-world consequences. Seriously, when one designer makes a button that's 45 pixels high and another one makes it 44 pixels high, the user feels that inconsistency. It creates confusion. Your developers get totally frustrated because they're rebuilding the same thing over and over again. And you're wasting so many hours fixing tiny things that should have been right from the very start.
So yeah, that brings us right to our first section, the chaos of inconsistency. We're going to talk about why that one-off, screen-by-screen design approach just completely falls apart for any product that's meant to grow. The solution to all this chaos is a true design system. And let's be super clear here. This is not just a UI kit you download. A UI kit is just the what. Here are the buttons, here are the inputs. A real design system, though, that includes the foundations, the patterns, the rules. It's the entire what, how, and why behind every single decision you make. Okay, so how do we actually build one? Well, we have to start at the foundation, and this is going to require a pretty big mindset shift. You've got to stop thinking in pixels. Instead, you need to start thinking in tokens and variables. Think of them as the subatomic particles of your entire design system. Design tokens are, without a doubt, the absolute core of any modern system. So instead of using a random hex code, like, say, #3b82f6, you create a named entity, something like color primary. And that name, that becomes the single source of truth for everyone, for designers in Figma and for developers in their code. It creates a shared language, which completely eliminates all the guesswork. Now, here's where it gets really powerful. Check out this hierarchy. On the left, you have primitive tokens. These are just the raw values, like blue 500. But on the right, you have semantic tokens, which describe the purpose, like color primary. So imagine your company decides to rebrand from blue to purple. With this system, you don't have to go and change hundreds of different components. No way. You change one single thing. You just point color primary to purple 500 instead of blue 500. And boom, done. The entire app updates instantly. That is the incredible power of abstraction. And this is where the magic really happens inside Figma, thanks to variables. It brings this whole theory to life. First, you create your modes, right? Like light mode and dark mode. Then you define your semantic variables, like color/background primary, and you give them different values for each mode. Finally, you just connect your components to those variables. And the result? You can flip your entire product from light to dark mode with literally one click. This isn't just a nice to have. For any scalable product, this is non-negotiable. All right, with our foundation of tokens and variables set, let's move up a layer and talk about architecting smart components. These are the real building blocks of your UI, and we're going to see how to make them super flexible, but also totally bulletproof. But wait, before we start building anything, let me give you the golden rule. It's so important to avoid over-engineering. That's when you build these super complex systems for what are actually simple problems. Not every single thing needs to be a component. If you have a unique header graphic that's only on the marketing page, just leave it be, keep it free. This keeps your system lean and practical, not bloated with a bunch of rules you don't need. Now, when you do build components, auto layout is your absolute best friend. Let's just focus on two key settings here, hug contents and fill container. Think of hug for things that need to grow with their content, like a button where the text might get longer. And fill is for elements that need to adapt to their parent container, like the background of a card that needs to stretch to fill a column. Honestly, mastering just these two concepts is the secret to making designs that are truly responsive. Okay, let's break down the anatomy of a really robust, bulletproof component. First, use component properties like a simple true-false toggle for states like disabled or loading. This is way more efficient than creating dozens of separate variants. Second,
Always use your spacing variables for things like padding to keep everything consistent. And finally, nest smaller components inside bigger ones. It's like building with Legos. An icon goes inside a button. This creates this powerful, logical system where one small change updates everything correctly. All right, we're at the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, this might be the most crucial part. A perfect design system is totally useless if developers can't actually use it. So let's talk about closing that gap between design and engineering to make handoff totally seamless. And this, right here, is the big payoff. This is why we did all that foundational work with tokens. See on the left, you've got your Figma variable name, like color/primary. And on the right, the exact same name in the code. It is a direct one-to-one map. There's no more ambiguity, no more developers having to guess which shade of blue you meant. It's a true shared language. So, for the absolute smoothest handoff possible, just follow this checklist. First, always use Figma's dev mode. It was literally built for this. Next, name your layers meaningfully. Please, no more rectangle 124. Then, document the rules for how and when to use a component. And finally, use a plugin to export all your design tokens, so developers can just plug them straight into their codebase. When you really boil it all down, everything we've talked about comes back to one fundamental shift in how you think. It's about getting away from designing individual screens and starting to architect a cohesive, living system. This, right here, is the mindset of a senior designer. So let's quickly recap the most important takeaways. Stop just making pretty pictures. Start building real, living systems. Use variables and modes as your secret weapon for scalability. Future-proof all of your work by building with semantic tokens. Get really good at auto layout for true responsiveness. And maybe most importantly, remember that your design system isn't just a Figma file. It's a product, and its users are your fellow designers and your engineers. I want to leave you with this final thought. The whole point of doing all of this is to help your team move faster and build better products together. A design system should be an accelerator, not some strict rule book that just gets in the way. If you find that your system is actually slowing people down, that's a sign that it's broken and it needs to evolve. So my question to you is, what's the one thing you're going to systematize in